Hello and welcome to your award-winning The Reasons I'm Broke podcast, bringing you the reasons we're broke every single week through news and headlines ranging from comics, movies, TV, video games, and more. I'm Daniel, and today we have the return of a veteran podcaster himself. We have Nick from Buds, Bros, and Superheroes. Welcome back, Nick.
Hey, man. Thanks so much for having me back.
For anyone that is new to the podcast, the way we format the show, the bulk of the podcast is news. Then we head on over to this week, what's new on Netflix, which are the December 2021 highlights. And finally, we cap it off with the Bro Kept Block, which is what Nick and I have been doing in the week, the more personal side of the podcast, where you get to know us a little bit better. So jumping into this week's sector, we've got Pokemon, who this is an indicator of exactly how much this is really not going away as far as the hype and how much of a business there is. Outside of the official releases, 8 tons of fake Pokemon cards were seized last week by Chinese officials at Shanghai's Pudong Airport. The fake cards were bound for the Netherlands, where they would then presumably be distributed around Europe. Some of that, I'm sure, would have made its way to the US, because I saw that a lot when I ran Pokemon League. 8 tons of fucking Pokemon cards, Nick.
It's quite shocking, to be honest. I mean, not the fact that there's counterfeits, because you always expect counterfeits wherever there's a market. I just didn't realize that the Pokemon card market was so hot that 8 tons. I mean, it's literal, for anybody out there. It was like 7.6 or something like that, but 16,000 pounds. So imagine how much 1 pound or how much one card weighs, and then put that into 16,000. That's a shit ton of merchandise. So the demand must be there, though. They thought they were going to get rid of it. So that's what's more surprised me about the story than anything else, of like, damn, I knew that there was some trouble at stores about selling them and putting them behind counters. I've recognized that, like, at my Rite Aid or Walgreens, whatever's on the corner here, now has them behind the counter. And not only that, but in the big magnetic plastic kind of containers. I guess people really just want them that bad.
What I used to see before the Pokemon craze, and I'm sure this problem is simply magnified by the fact that you can't really find these cards as easily. It's easier now than when it was 2 months ago, but it's still not. You can't just walk up to any place at any given time and find Pokemon cards. But a lot of parents would say, okay, my kids want those GXs, the full art Pokemon, the full art trainers. I found them on eBay, a lot of 50 of them for $20. And one parent was like, is that a good deal? They showed me the eBay listing. And I'm like, that's a good deal if they're real. And you can tell from the pictures, and I would show them. I'm like, these are all fake cards. And they're like, how can you tell? And aside from telling them, like, I've seen them so often with kids coming in and they're playing with them, which is fine. They can play with them all they want. They just can't trade them in. But I'm like, if they want real cards, these aren't it. But if they don't care, then, have at it. Buy the lot of 50 cards for $20 and enjoy yourself. I'm sure more parents, and especially with the holidays coming up, are buying those up and not knowing any better and saying, well, they're Pokemon cards. My kid's not going to know the difference, or not even caring. And they show up on Amazon too, and they'll just buy them. And there's going to be a ton of kids that get fake Pokemon cards this holiday season. Some of them will be fucking over the moon about it. And sure, you can't find them anywhere, but a lot of this stuff is coming from places like China. Some of it is being printed here in the US. But 8 tons of that, some of that must have it goes throughout the world. Someone is distributing these to different buyers that then throw them up online on eBay, and they make all kinds of cash in the meantime, because the cost on these, I'm sure, is next to nothing, especially coming from China.
All I could think of right now is in, 10 or 20 years, whatever is really kind of taking over TV, whether it be like a Pawn Stars or even a Comic Book Man or something like that. Just seeing so many stories of like kids or men at that point, or adults, I should say, bringing in their cards like, nah, bro, I got these for Christmas. These are legit. And some guy going, nah, these are fake. These are part of that 8-ton scandal that happened, when Chinese officials, like, you know what I mean? Could be part of history one day of just a bunch of people thinking that they have really awesome, rare Pokemon cards, and all they have is shit.
Fake Chinese knockoffs. I'm looking forward to watching that episode of that thing, whatever it is. There are signs that maybe the world is healing a little bit, and who knows, this could all still get canceled. But after over 2 years of no fully hosted San Diego Comic-Con, July 21st through the 24th of next year has been set as the return of this massive worldwide convention. A WonderCon in Anaheim will also be hosted by Comic-Con International on April 1st through the 3rd. How confident are you feeling in these dates, Nick? With the state of things right now, are you feeling like, all right, maybe this will actually happen?
Absolutely. I really do think that it's going to happen. I just see a lot of things, in my opinion, getting a lot less strict. And then a lot of people, too, just still okay with staying 6 feet apart and also kind of, I guess I should say, pretending like things are still really serious. So we're doing the 6 feet apart, and some people are still really into the mask thing. So I fully believe that by July, it'll be even warmer. You know, the actual cold season will be gone and shit like that. So personally, just maybe I'm optimistic. I do think that we will be the strongest that we've been in terms of coming together in large groups. And fuck, man, I might just want to have this be true just so I can quote unquote be there virtually and see everything and just know, like you said, kind of how you introed this section of like the world is healing. Something fucking is going back to normal. There is San Diego Comic-Con again this year.
The only doubt I have is the fact that it is taking place in California. And I know that much like New York and Illinois, they went on the far end of like, let's really protect ourselves and shut things down and all of that. So that's the only thing that has me a little bit nervous about it. But the one question I wanted to ask you when it came to this news here, how relevant do you think Comic-Con is after 2 years of not having it?
Oh, I honestly, once again, maybe I'm just rose-colored glasses or whatever they call it. I think it's going to be like a mecca again, that everybody who was waiting for something to come back out will come up and show up for this, that it'll be kind of a Field of Dreams moment of, if you build it, if you let them have it, nerds will come, dude, and they will come full force. And I really mean that more than just the quippy joke that it means. I really do think that some people are on the fence about coming out or doing things or reopening, but if anything can fucking do it, I really do think it's Comic-Con. And you know, we're saying San Diego Comic-Con, but for a lot of people, San Diego Comic-Con is just Comic-Con. You know, it's almost got the honor of just being Comic-Con in a lot of people's minds. So yeah, if anything can do it, it's got to be Comic-Con.
I do see this as an opportunity for anyone that maybe went to Comic-Con in previous years and saw it in its full glory of Hall H. And this is where you're going to see the debut of this latest trailer for this superhero movie that's coming out. Maybe set your expectations a little bit lower for this one, because I really don't honestly know how many media companies are going to be there to present and to show like this is going to be the full slate of films for the next 5 years. This is the next phase. I think a lot of these companies are either still in let's wait and see, or much like DC Fandom and Disney did with their own stuff of like, we can just host our own thing and announce our own stuff without having to pay all of our actors, all of our talent, and all of that to be out there just to announce it. So I don't know, maybe I do suggest a little bit of that. If you have been to previous years, that I would expect something a little bit more low key, something that is more what I personally like, which is going to see the vendors, going to see the local artists and celebrities, some of the lower, maybe not as famous celebrities that I'm like, fuck, I can just get in line 20 minutes, meet this, smaller character from Star Trek or whomever. I think that for that reason, I think it might even be more fun. It's not this giant, like, we're here to watch the latest Avengers trailer. It's like, no, we're here for Comic-Con. We're here to buy shit. We're here to see the cosplayers. It might even be better in that way.
Agreed, and kind of get it back to its roots of what you're talking about. Maybe not all the way back to like the first ones in the basement of hotels, but just a small kind of one. Because yeah, what you're talking about sounds great to me, especially if it was like Kevin Conroy, 20-minute wait. Like, hell yeah, I'm gonna get in that fucking line. Or there's still a few Power Rangers that I need to cross off my list. So to have shorter lines for those guys to kind of step up, and you're right, not have to deal with a bunch of people like, all right, I got to rush to Hall H to be there first because they're dropping the Avengers or Feige's here or some shit like that. And at the end of the day, too, Hall H, Kevin Smith will be there at the end of the day. I guarantee he'll be one of the people. So that's cool, too.
He tends to be there every year. So if you're a Kevin Smith fan, that alone is a reason to be there. If you are going next year, I'm curious to know. Let us know on Discord, Twitter, wherever. And I'd love to see a bunch of images, too, of the convention and compare it to previous years. There's another movie here that it's going to be Leo's second big screen movie, and it's going to be Jurassic World Dominion. The first one was the Paw Patrol movie, which he loved. In an interview with IGN, paleontologist Joe Bonser praised this Jurassic World Dominion 5-minute prologue that they released on YouTube. And it was really cool to see. I was kind of fooled by it a little bit, but then when you see the whole thing, you kind of see where it fits. But he did say this, quote, "For me, the biggest thing is the feathers on the theropods, the two-legged meat-eating dinosaurs. The raptors are generally just naked, just skin. Perhaps it's because they don't look as scary covered in feathers, but I think that it would be quite scary. A 6-foot-tall chicken with razor claws chasing you, you'd still run away," end quote. So this prologue, what it does is it rockets audiences back 65 million years to experience the world before humans existed and kind of shows you dinosaurs in their natural habitat without the changes that they made in Jurassic Park in the first novel and in the first movie, mixing it with amphibian DNA, which I guess sort of explains why they are mutated in that novel and in the movie. I thought that was a really cool way. They explained it in Jurassic of now we know what dinosaurs, we have a more accurate window or a more accurate understanding of what dinosaurs look like and how many of them were feathered and or had quills or fur. And now their way of explaining it away in Jurassic World was, yeah, but we mixed it with this other DNA and we needed to make a park that was entertaining people and we needed to make them scary. And that's why these are not really dinosaurs. They're more like monsters. And I thought it was cool that they kind of made it canon by showing us what dinosaurs truly look like, at least the way we understand them in 2021.
Yeah, and I agree with the fucking quote, too. You know, a 6-foot-tall chicken with razor claws chasing you. Fuck that noise. We were just watching the Macy's Day Parade, and Peacock had their own float, and it was a giant peacock. Go figure. And I got into a fight with that because I'm generally just honestly afraid of birds. Any and all type of birds. Something about a beak is scary. Their eyes are fucked up. Like predator birds. If I were to see a hawk in real life or shit like that, no fucking way. So my mom was teasing me and shit like, what, you think that's scary? I said, yes. Yes, I do. Because it was, in fact, a 6-foot tall, you know, it was a float. But still, the idea of a bird that big is scary as shit. So I liked that. I liked the changes in the trailer. It was an okay trailer for that, you know, the epilogue or whatever they're calling it. It was just a lot of running around, but there was a lot of different textures. And one of my favorite ones wasn't even the feathers. It was like the shot over one of the dinosaurs. So the sun is kind of coming from behind it and you could see the outline of it, but you can also see like a really light outline of hair, like kind of like a balding person, how they have that little layer. When you get up close, you can't really see it. But when the sun, you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, it was on one of the raptors, I think, and on the T-Rex too.
Yes, on one of the ones where I was like, interesting, you know, like that's even just a further kind of one, because I know the whole feather texture thing, like you were talking about for the book and for the movie, has been something that scientists have been going back and forth on. And like you said, too, I like how they were like, well, no, we needed to add this kind of gene to make them look like this. And when they were explaining the Andromedus and adding cuttlefish so it can camouflage and shit like that. I like what you're saying. Like, no, they made it canon. Like, that's why the entire movies never look like what they just look like in this 5 minutes, because we had to mess with it to get the DNA.
Before I saw the full trailer and I saw like little clips of it, I'm like, oh, cool, they have the feathered dinosaur in there. I thought that the idea was going to be like, we're going forward in time a little bit for Dominion. Now that dinosaurs it is truly a Jurassic World, they're out there, that maybe they're reverting or adapting to their environment and kind of going back to that natural state. And that would have been a way for them to show like a more accurate depiction of dinosaurs while still having their cake and eating it too. But I was kind of like, all right, well, they still want to keep the classic designs because let's face it, that's merchandise. If you change the T-Rex and add the feathers or fur on it, that's going to hurt. That's a branding thing. And from companies, that's a huge deal. So now I understand kind of like, all right, I see why they were doing it, but it really worked out really well. I was happy to see it. And I understand too, like you mentioned, it's a prologue. I don't see it being in the film at all. It was 5 minutes of kind of like a nature documentary, not really something that would fit in a movie. Even if it opened in that way, it'd be kind of an odd opening to me. So it was just kind of bonus content that I thought was really neat. And I do hope that you get some glimpse of it in the movie itself, a modern, a real dinosaur, quote unquote. But if not, it's still kind of a neat treat that we got, and it's cool to see that scientists were all about it.
It also reminded me at the beginning of movie Dinosaur by Disney. You remember that flick?
I
It was
do,
like
yeah. It's
so
been
like that was the beginning of that, of just like following an egg and also seeing dinosaurs doing dinosaur things all that time ago. Where like I kind of turned to my wife at one point. I was like, yeah, no wonder they're putting this up for free, because like if this came on in the theater, I would not watch it. So I'm hoping you're right. Like this was just bonus. This was something to get hype and talk about exactly what we're doing right now. But I really hope it's not the opening 5 minutes of the flick.
Jurassic World Dominion opens in theaters June 10th, 2022. Sounds like AMC kind of went back on their whole thing of like, we're not having any Universal Pictures. It's a COVID thing. If you're listening to this years later, they threatened to not show Jurassic World or I think the Fast and Furious movies either because of a deal they made with streaming and the Trolls movie. So
Yes.
thankfully, like we're a couple years later now, and it's like, all right, everything, no one's as upset anymore, at least with the movie theater chains.
Yep, that was a whole big thing of like, no, we're putting Trolls straight to on demand, and AMC went, man, we're never going to show another Universal again. I kind of forgot all about that.
They were
Good
pissed.
callback.
We have future news on Spider-Man. There was a lot of confusion as to whether or not Sony was going to re-up their deal with Disney because they were on for, I believe, 3 films, maybe an extra appearance or 2 in the Avengers and Infinity War and Endgame. But Sony has confirmed that it intends to make 3 more Spider-Man films with Marvel Studios after Spider-Man No Way at Cinema, which I think opens this month. And they said, Amy Pascal, who's the producer at Sony, said, quote, "This is not the last movie that we're going to make with Marvel. This is not the last Spider-Man movie. We are getting ready to make the next Spider-Man movie with Tom Holland and Marvel. We're thinking of this as 3 films, and now we're going to go into the next 3. This is not the last of our MCU movies," end quote. How many times can you say that in the same quote, right? This is MCU still. Come and see them. Come and watch them. From what I understand, maybe you follow this a little bit closer than I do, but they were, after this contract ended, Tom Holland's Spider-Man is not Disney's when it's all said and done. Sony could then make their own Spider-Man movies starring Tom Holland's. It just wouldn't feature any of the MCU characters in those movies. Is that how kind of it was working?
So my understanding, yeah, it's been this whole time that since the deal all the way back in the day when they had to sell movie rights to keep the doors open at Marvel, that anything to do with him on the screen in terms of live action movies is theirs to do. And for Civil War is when they started playing nice, and then it's kind of had this relationship up through this. I personally think, I don't know what the cut is. I don't know what the numbers are behind doors, but kind of ruin that relationship seems silly. The numbers would really have to shift in a way that I'm like, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Every time that Tom Holland's shown up, it's done better for you numbers wise than either Andrew Garfield or Toby kind of did. They do have the oomph of like Doctor Strange is here and like Tony Stark is here and shit like that, and kind of people dig the universe building right now. So to take them out of it wouldn't seem like a good kind of thing to do. Personally, I like the kid as Spider-Man for the most part. Like a lot of the time, there are times where I'm like, all right, we get it. You're the kid and they're playing that role into you really big, and maybe he can go sit down for a little bit. But that first one they made, I really liked. I can't remember the name. Homecoming. That's the first one. The second one wasn't. No, I did not like that one. I'm hoping to like the new one. I do like him as part of the team. Again, sometimes, because when he's part of the team, they only use him for comedic effect. And
Right.
In movies that use a shit ton of comedic effect all the fucking way around, to have somebody be the comedic effect is like they double down on him sometimes, and especially the pop culture references. So there are times where rewatchability and that shit wears thin pretty quick. But overall, all in all, there are other beats that he gets to play where I'm like, that's fucking Spider-Man. I think it's Civil War where he's talking. He's like, dude, I was having a really good day. I found this DVD player, math test. I nailed it. Just trying to get through my life as a kid. And that's something in movies I didn't see a lot of. Tobey Maguire graduates high school within the first how many minutes, and Andrew Garfield seemed to have it like worked out. He's dunking hoops, and I liked that kind. I like it for what it is. I try to be optimistic about it because it's still Spider-Man. I'm cool with Spider-Man.
I think you nailed it as far as the numbers game. As much as I personally, as I like the Andrew Garfield. I like Tobey Maguire's. I'd like to see Sony fully handle Spider-Man again without the help of Marvel Studios. But I also can't argue with the fact that like tickets are selling out like crazy for this third one. From what I hear, from what I'm seeing crazy eBay listings as well. So obviously there's a demand to go see this in theaters. There's no reason for Sony not to do this deal aside from maybe not seeing as big of a cut from ticket sales, because that's where they make their money in this deal is ticket sales, and then Disney gets merchandise and I believe direct video like DVD, 4K and all of that. As you said, if this last one maybe didn't do as well, Sony would probably try their own thing and not split the profits in that way. I'm just like, all right, well, thankfully I'm not a massive Spider-Man fan where I'm like, oh man, fuck. And I'm just like, all right, well, I won't see the next three either. And it's fine. I'll keep watching Venom 3 or Morbius 2 when those come out, whatever else Sony wants to make on the side with their characters. And in the meantime, in a decade or two, I can maybe watch another Sony Spider-Man at that point. But in the meantime, MCU fans seem to like it, so they're going to get more of it. And so be it,
But I don't know why they don't just go out and do it again. We were talking about, I think, with Joker at one point in our many conversations of just like having more than one and just doing it that way. So I can't see why they can't play nice with them. And then as they open this Pandora's box of what seems to be the new movie of having multiple Spider-Man, maybe all of a sudden we're going to go follow a live action Miles Morales, and they could do that all on their own and it doesn't have to touch. You know what I mean?
They should fucking do that.
I would fucking I would see any and all Spider-Man always.
I don't understand why Sony hasn't done they have Into the Spider-Verse, but a live action Miles movie, they can do their own trilogy over there, and I'm sure it would do great. There was a lot of speculation when Venom came out, and especially now with Morbius, of which Spider-Man exists in that universe. So that was an opportunity for them to either bring back Andrew Garfield, because he would have been about the same age as Tom Hardy, so it would have been a better matchup than Tom Holland, for example. So there was that speculation. Other people were saying they can do an entirely new Spider-Man or even a Miles Morales in that universe. I think it would have been different enough from what the MCU is doing. It could have stood on its own, this is an entirely different character. He's still Spider-Man. You can see that they can do a character without Spider-Man. They did it with Venom. He had an origin without Peter Parker, and it worked. So I think they can do it as well in Miles, or have an established Miles movie. There's so many ways they can do it, especially like you said, now that you have the multiverse, you almost don't really need to explain every part of it. You can just have it. No, this is Miles. He's the Spider-Man of this universe. And audiences get it. They're like, yeah, sure. Okay, I got it. They got it in Into the Spider-Verse. There were all kinds of different spider people.
And it's getting a sequel too. So by the time they kind of get this plan rolling, that'll have two Spider-Verse kind of movies of saying, yes, there's many spider people and this is how we do it. So like you're saying, in terms of public knowledge for theater goers, it'll be obvious. It'll be like, gotcha, let's go. We don't need to do a third origin story or anything like that. And but just keep it going. Because even the dude who voices Miles, I would just take him for live action as well. I can't think of his name. I only know him right now off the top of my head as the guy in Dope, but he really does it. I would watch him do it in real life. Well, all of a sudden, it's Hapsy, where the Spider-Verse leaks into that for live action for a little bit, and that's their introduction to a live action kind of universe. Like we're talking about, whatever they do, I would watch it.
Yeah, man, I'm sitting here all doom and gloom about, man, I'm not going to see any Spider-Man. I got the fucking Into the Spider-Verse. The Sony's been doing that shit. They did it great with the first one. And I'm sure Into the Spider-Verse 2 won't be the last one. So I wouldn't be shocked if they set up yet another sequel by the time the credits roll in number 2. So fuck yeah, man. I got great Spider-Man shit coming my way.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that as well.
So not too long ago, we took a look at Constantine. It was the Keanu Reeves movie, did a revisit. And it looks like we might see that version of Constantine again. In an interview with Esquire, John Wick star Keanu Reeves reiterated that he'd like to play John Constantine again. He said, quote, "I love playing Constantine. John Constantine, I've played a lot of Johns. How many Johns have I played? I don't even know. I think it's over 10. But anyway, I'd love to have the chance to play Constantine again." End quote. Last year marked the 15th anniversary of the film's release. As you and I talked about it did not do amazing at the box office, but there seems to be some kind of a weird buzz about it where people are like, yeah, I mean, he's a huge star now. I think the name of Keanu Reeves would bring in more ticket sales alone than I think the first film did. He's a lot more successful these days. He's a fucking movie star. I think they should pull the trigger and try it. I really do.
And not only is he a movie star, but 15 years later, he doesn't look any different. He's like a fucking vampire. So it's not even like we have to kind of do the thing where it's like, oh, he's a little bit more rough and grizzled now. We can just say it's been like 2.5 years and people be like, I bought that. You know what I mean? Like he really does just look really good. So I would super duper like to see him come back to the role in ways that I can't describe. We talked about that movie and how different it is than Constantine the books and everything like that, almost as if it's a shade a la Constantine, but it's a shade that did well for me personally. I still watch that movie quite regularly and still think it does good. Would like to see it come back. And as we were kind of talking about with what people love, and I'm people, so I like universes, and just to have him team up with one other DC person, just to have him in there with a dead man, I think is a really good one. Or doing anything with inside the Justice League Dark to maybe just start to tip the hat towards like, all right, we might go there one day, would be cool as well.
And I think that is also a sign. We had the actor who played the devil in the first film. I think half a year ago, he mentioned that there was a script for Constantine 2, or that it was happening. Like he was very sure about like, no, we're going to get it, almost as if they already signed on some of these guys and they're just waiting on something. So I think more pieces have been going forward than we even know. I think it's almost like any day now, probably early next year, that they might say, yeah, we're doing Constantine 2. And especially now that I think it was Del Toro that was doing Justice League Dark, and he dropped out of that as he does a ton of films. Now that movie's not happening, you know how Warner Brothers is, they don't like to have two Dark Sides or two Constantines anywhere because audiences will get confused. But now that thing isn't a thing, they can be like, all right, well, now we can have Constantine in a movie, and maybe, like you said, they can put Zatanna in there, or Swamp Thing, or Deadman, and almost set up a Justice League Dark film, because who better to set that up with than Constantine himself?
And like you're talking about too, with star power of just, a Keanu Reeves driven Justice League Dark, I'm sure once again, kind of to go back to the numbers, because I'm positive. I don't know. I think we were talking about this too, so sorry, but I've been watching a lot of Entourage again. So I've been feeling a lot of like, talking about that with my wife and shit. But it's just number game again of like, I think that like anybody should be able to sell that. A Keanu Reeves driven Justice League Dark could go very far, especially too if they can get Guillermo back on. Now I'm wondering, he says that he drops out of a lot of things. I wonder if that's true, or if a lot of people just preemptively pull the gun and be like, well, we have Del Toro on it. So, and he's like, no, I actually never said yes. You guys just wanted my name because it's worth that much.
If you go on his Wikipedia page, you will see like all the stuff he dropped out of. He's almost as bad. Actually, he's worse than Aronofsky, my favorite director. Aronofsky was attached to like Batman Begins, Wolverine, Watchmen, and dropped out of all those. And Guillermo seems to be the same way, where he's like, he's attached to direct and do this. And it seems to always be, it happened most recently, I believe, with Hellboy 3. He was demanding a higher budget than the studio was willing to give him, so he dropped out of it. And then we got the Hellboy movie that we got. So I don't know. I don't know if it's just that he's very particular about the projects, and as soon as something changes, he's like, well, I don't have to do this. I'm fucking Guillermo. I can produce this thing over here. They'll put my name on there from the director of Pan's Labyrinth, and that's enough to get ticket sales in there, because people get tricked into, oh, he directed this too. And it's kind of like Tim Burton's Nightmare Before Christmas. Everyone thinks he directed that one too, just because it has that on there. So he's one of those directors. You can put his name, ticket sales will show up. But yeah, if you check out his wiki, you'll see all kinds of stuff that he unfortunately just kind of dropped out of.
I'm going to go and do that. Yeah, I didn't know. That's unfortunate. It would be great to see his name on like even half the stuff of that. I would have definitely loved a Justice League Dark by him, and I would have definitely loved another Hellboy by him. Not to shit on the David Harper one. It is what it is, but definitely a third Guillermo / Ron Perlman one would have been just awesome. I love those first two so much.
In a different multiverse, that film exists. There's a Hellboy 3 by him. By now, we would have seen Justice League 2 and the Green Lantern Corps film. All of that would have happened 3. Justice League 3, actually. Speaking of which, we're going to put on our tinfoil hats here for a sec, because there was, not even tinfoil, because we know Zach puts out hints and it's all intentional. Thanksgiving Day, Zack Snyder posted a video of his turkey, innocently, but along with a copy of Final Crisis, the Absolute Edition, blurry in the background. There were a couple of sketch notebooks spotted on top of the omnibus. As we know, he likes to storyboard all of his movies, and then he shoots what he draws. That's how he works. That's probably how he plans it all and visualizes it better, and it does great for him. This was also on the same week that Zack's second unit director, Clay Staub, he posted a sketch of Darkseid and Desaad, along with the words, quote, "Let it begin, hashtag Zack Snyder's Justice League," end quote. So there was a lot of retweets, and it got the buzz going. It kept it trending. Restore the Snyderverse has been trending for weeks, months now. He later clarified, though, that the sketch was just something he did while watching the Snyder Cut. But there are still some people that insist that the proximity of the two posts is meaningful and that it does mean something. They've also pulled this Jim Lee video that back in October, he posted a mosaic Crisis on Infinite Earths and Final Crisis image that he drew different scenes of. And for that, he said, quote, "We wanted to create something kind of fun for the fans to engage with. It's simply a puzzle. I've drawn 12 images, each celebrating a specific DC moment," end quote. Later on in that clip, I didn't see or watch or click on DC Fandom, but I saw the tweets earlier this week of him teasing what that meant, and there was a bunch of bleeps that they threw in there, and they were trying to be funny, like, "Oh, I guess I can't reveal it here at DC Fandom." Now that part, I know Jim and Zach are friends, and they have talked about collaborating on a comic book or something. I think that portion of it has more to do with the comics, maybe a relaunch or a reboot, a Crisis event. But as far as Zach putting up the Final Crisis and sketchbooks, to me, I don't know, Nick. I think it confirms that Discovery's going to announce Justice League 2 and 3 next year when they take over and the buyout happens.
I do too, and I've got two reasons for that. The first one being pretty just kind of practical, if you will. I've cooked many dinners, especially Thanksgiving ones, and you don't put shit on your counter. You just don't. There's not enough room. Stuff gets spilled. Important things that you want to keep pristine, like gorgeous omnibuses, you wouldn't put there unless, which leads into my second point, you want it there specifically. Like you were talking about with his attention to detail of thinking about a scene so much that he then draws it before he has to shoot it. This guy does not take a picture or even make a tiny little movie like this without putting everything in the frame exactly the way he wants it. There is no chance that it was just coincidentally sitting around. You know what I mean? Like in my mind, there's zero. There's zero chance that it just happened to be there and like, oh yeah, I happen to be that Justice League guy, and oh yeah, I was only trying to show off my turkey. It's like, no fucking way, dude. That's there to send a message to keep the hype train going between now and what you were talking about when they take over. Because if the hashtag keeps cruising, it's just proving everybody's point longer and longer of it's been years, we got what we wanted and we're still not happy because we know what we can have. Like, let's get this going. I think it was brilliant. It was really cool to see. And no tinfoil hat, if you ask me. I don't feel crazy saying it. Like, that was on purpose.
People forget that Zack came into film from the world of marketing first. That was what that was his degree, was in marketing, did a shit ton of work in that world, eventually started shooting commercials, and now he's doing blockbuster films. So he knows how to fucking market something. Everything, as I said, again, it's intentional. Everything that he does and he posts means something. When he was talking about the Snyder Cut before, 214 minutes, he posted the turkey and it was at 214 degrees and he's like, still some time left. And that was him talking about how long his cut of of Justice League was without telling us straight up because of NDAs or whatever it is. So he has his ways of telling people there's stuff happening or here's information. And with Final Crisis being that, I know people have analyzed that clapboard for that he posted a couple weeks back. But if you take those numbers and you put that, I think it's 279. If you take that omnibus, you look on 279, it's the image of Batman shooting Darkseid with I forgot what the name of the bullet was, Omega Bullet, I think, killing Darkseid, and then himself getting Omega beamed and thrown back in time. So that obviously fits perfectly, but we know that with Final Crisis, that story itself that could be the inspiration for the ending of Justice League Part 3. We already know that Bruce gets hit with the Omega Beam in his Justice League 3 film, and that's where Final Crisis, that's where they get out of. And I think he also says that Batman in his Justice League 3 film kills Darkseid very much again, like in Final Crisis. So why else would he be taking that omnibus and then drawing out those scenes for those two movies, two notebooks, Justice League 2 and 3 right there? I think it's happening. I think he's working on it, and it's only a matter of time before we get that announcement. I know people are speculating that this is going to be an animated thing. It's not going to be live action, but that's from that side of the movement that I no longer associate myself with, because there was all kinds of controversies there and people that were more for their own self-interest than with the movie itself or with Zack. So they're the people suggesting that it's a comic or an animated movie, but I think with Zack, it's probably live action, and I think it's happening, and I think Discovery's like, here's a budget, make 2 movies in one go, and that's it. That's your trilogy or pentology, I think is what it's called.
And there was another thing, too, that I saw online of somebody kind of dissecting this photo and the other news that we talked about, of other posts of Henry Cavill being on GQ or something, let's talk to famous people on the internet, whatever. And he brought this up in terms of the story arc of what they got to do with their 3, and then really talked about how he was missing out on where it was going to go when he kind of went to the evil side with the life equation and different things like that. So he's definitely in on the story too, well past what anybody else knows, and is able to talk about it, and is also doing that. Let's just keep fucking talking about it. Never let it die. I'm going to bring it up all that I can. So I thought that was great. And yeah, I like I just said, there's no way that was unintentional.
I'm glad you brought that up with Henry Cavill, because up until this point, very few times was he openly supportive for the Snyder Cut or for more movies. He kept talking about how, even less than a month ago, about, I still have the cape in the closet. I'm excited I want to do a more hopeful Superman and this, that, and the other things that don't fit with that nightmare world that Zack was doing in Justice League 2. And then eventually he would have come around and helped in Justice League 3. It's a story arc for Superman, something he's been working on since Man of Steel. And Zack has said that he would go back to the red and blue by the end of Justice League 3, a more traditional Superman, something we're more familiar with. Because of that, people were like, okay, well, Henry Cavill. But now, as you said, he's talking about this as if this is the trajectory. And I think it's the first time that he's kind of like said, okay, no, this is now the direction. So people took that as another confirmation of, okay, so a deal must have already been made with Henry at some point, because we know that him and his agent, or at least one or the other, money and getting him the best deal is what's most important over visions, or accountability is greater than entertainment, from what we've seen at least so far. And in this case, it seems like that's like, all right, well, we got paid, so we can start talking about this as if this is now the next step to Superman. So at least Henry's on board with this. We know that much, and I think that's a huge sign, because if you couldn't get Henry, then the whole thing kind of falls apart. You don't want to recast Superman in Justice League 2 and 3.
Agreed. I don't think if any one of them couldn't come back, then it wouldn't not be worth it, but it would be definitely different. It would throw it off a little bit for me.
I think in just a couple of months, we will either get that confirmation or I guess not, but we'll keep fighting at that point. And Discovery, I have a lot of hope with them, and I know I've been burned in the past. We all have, especially when Walter Hamada took over DC Films. We're like, great, awesome, and nope, didn't happen. Okay, Ann Sarnoff, awesome, let's send her flowers and thank you letters and please, and nope, didn't happen either. So now it's Discovery, and it's a whole different regime. Hopefully they go in and clear house and put in their own guys, and they see that there's money to be made here and there's no egos involved. And let's make that happen. I'm optimistic, I'm hopeful, and I think that the fan base is more fired up than it's been since the Snyder Cut released. So that's a huge positive. I know Ray Porter has been talking about it as well as Darkseid. He's like, I don't know anything, but I went to my bookstore to try to find the copy of Final Crisis, and it sold out everywhere. And people were also saying, Zack sells comics. You guys are having trouble selling DC books? Fucking, he puts up one image of a blurry trade paperback, and suddenly everyone's buying up every copy of Final Crisis they can get so that they can sort of see what happens in Justice League 2 and 3. It's like, come on, man. Like, he sells it on all fronts. Let's do this thing. Let's make some money. Discovery, let's fucking make some money. But that does wrap it up as far as our news for the week. This is the monthly segment now. We've got what's new on Netflix, the December 2021 highlights. So going to go through this list first, and then we'll go back and see what pops out for you. Ink Master Seasons 3 and 4, Sucker Punch by Zack Snyder, Wild Things, Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous Season 4, Shaun the Sheep, The Flight Before Christmas, that's a Netflix original, The Unforgivable starring Sandra Bullock, that's another Netflix movie, The Witcher Season 2, and Don't Look Up starring Leonardo DiCaprio and Jennifer Lawrence. Any of these bring back nostalgia or stuff you're really hyped for?
Yeah, it's really fucking funny, actually, dude. Ink Master Season 3 and 4. So the first two dropped, I don't even know how long ago, months. And my wife and I, we tore through them super duper quick to the point where I was like, hey, Netflix, do you got any, the old Dave Chappelle meme of like, you got any more of those Ink Masters? And then eventually we just broke down. It was either Black Friday or Cyber Monday where Amazon was like, yo, if you get one of these premium channels for the first 2 months, it's 99 cents. So we went with Paramount Plus, and all the Ink Masters are on there. So we were super happy to be like, yay, now we get to continue our journey. So we literally just watched season 3 and started 4. And then I get on to do this show and I see this on there. I was like, what a fucking coincidence. How silly is that?
For Ink Master, it always kind of blew me away. Although I guess you know that you're dealing with hopefully a decent artist, because some of the earlier rounds you get some pretty bad ones. But would you ever feel confident enough to be one of those people that's like, yeah, put whatever on me, I'm the canvas? Could you ever do that?
We were just talking about that. So for anybody who's unfamiliar, by the end of it, the last 3 get a master canvas of 35 hours. And that one is strictly what you're saying of they have complete control. Yeah, I think I could. I mean, it would depend on like what wiggle room. So for an example, the one person did a tattoo from basically the start of their hip to the bottom of their knee for the 35 hours. And it was a mermaid. But this particular mermaid had their boobs out. And like personally, I don't want tits tattooed on me. Like if I was like, so if I could say to this guy, hey, can you like do some starfish pasties or maybe like a seashell or bee shell? Anything like that would kind of help. But if they were like, no, that's when I'd be like, ah, shit, like that's what I signed up for, 100% control. So my answer is a maybe. If I could have just a little bit to tweak a little some things, but for a 35-hour tattoo, I'm presuming it's free as well. Like that's a lot of ink for by the time you get to the final 3, it's probably going to be.
The part that always killed me is when they'd have the canvas out there next to the artist, and then they'd critique the shit out of the fucking art. So you're standing there like, oh man, they did botch that line. Oh fuck, they should have used that different color. So now you always, to me, I was like, I'd always leave disappointed. Like, fuck man, you fucked up that tattoo and now it's on me forever. And all those mistakes they pointed out, you'll never unsee them.
No, and then in later seasons too, they added the human canvas jury, where all the people in the challenge got into a room, looked at everybody's, and had to decide who got the worst. So like that's just another beatdown of like maybe you got it and you weren't happy, and now you just had at most 15 other strangers go, yeah, yours is the worst. Fuck you. Like you're right. It would be definitely a memory that you'd keep for life as well as the tattoo, but maybe ones you wouldn't want.
Most of the time they'd be in denial, like, well, I like it.
Yeah, you do get a lot of that when you see them, like the little bit that they do show of them deliberating. It's just like, no, that's exactly what they meant. Of course, that's what it is. And it's just like, this sucks for them. Sorry.
I had Jurassic World and Shaun the Sheep on here because Leo is big on both of those. These are Jurassic World's actually not bad for a kid's cartoon. Kelly talks about how intense it is, and yeah, it's like dinosaurs trying to kill kids, but it's a kids show, and they made it work. So season 4, there'll finally be a whole new season of new content instead of the repeated episodes. So there's going to be less of a period before I watch that same episode again. Now that there's another season of it, just in time for the new movie coming out just a couple months here. So I had to include those on there.
The Jurassic World, is that 2D, 3D?
It is 3D CG animation.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna have to maybe look that up now. If you're saying, because I don't mind the medium of cartoons, whether it be either that. So yeah, if you're saying it is for kids, but it's also got like that intensity too. Like I love that right in between kind of shit. So I'm gonna check that out now, because every time I hear some Jurassic World project, I always feel like it's in Lego. And for some reason, like they go too silly, they're on the way opposite side of that spectrum, where even for a property I love, where like Jurassic Park or World, I'm like, nope, can't do the Lego stuff personally.
Yeah, this is definitely far from that. Kids go missing and then they get found later, but they're all like, well, I don't know what you want to call it, but they've adapted to the dino world. So they're like, you left me. And it's like, holy shit, there's a little bit in here, a little bit of development from the different characters. The only thing my head can't get past is these kids are on the Jurassic Park island and they're there for months, but their clothes never changes, never gets dirty. It's still, they all still look the same.
They're never dirty, never gaining or losing weight or growing hair or nothing. Correct. They always just stay pristinely in character.
Yeah, you got to sell toys. You can't have them change or anything. And then a couple films that Bobby talked about, Don't Look Up, because it has this crazy cast in it. I was looking at this like, this must have been a fucking expensive movie to make, and Netflix got it. So that's going to be on my queue. And then Sandra Bullock's for The Unforgivable, from what a little bit that I saw in the trailer, she's been in prison for several years, and you can tell like, holy shit, like she's an amazing actor, and you can almost see like, yeah, this looks like someone that has been in there, but she's having trouble adapting to the real world, which is a very real thing. A lot of people that get released from prison after many years will end up committing a crime, not because this is my lifestyle, but they're like, I don't know this world and I knew prison, so I'm just going to do something to get me back in there. A lot of prisoners are known to break rules right before they're supposed to be let out so that they get extended. They'll get in a fight with someone, or they'll have contraband they're not supposed to, just so that they're like, oh, you're in there for another year. And they're like, great, because the real world is fucking scary. So to see that with Sandra Bullock, like, I'm all in on these two.
Yeah, a lot of people forget, like, just because you get out doesn't mean you have somewhere to go.
Mm-hmm.
And shit like that sucks. I see it a lot, just through emails and stuff for the Last Prisoner project, of just trying to, of course there are emails of like, give us money, but eventually they go into just a lot of people don't have places to go, and will do exactly what you just said of, fuck, at least I know the routine in here. At least I know what I'm doing. And yeah, the food's not bad, but it's food. The heat's not hot, but I won't freeze to death. Shit like that is something that people take for granted maybe. And that sounds awesome. Sandra Bullock to me is really great. I think she could pull it off. I think that if she does it like really well, it might be like that Charlize Theron monster kind of transformation. Because I quickly looked it up as I was looking. I was like, ew, like that's some good fucking makeup. Like at the very least, the makeup person's gonna get a slam dunk high five, because she looks like she just did some hard fucking time in that little kind of picture that I saw really quick. I was like, damn. So that one I might look up. And then too, I saw just a bunch of people that I like. Of Vincent D'Onofrio is also in there. Viola Davis is like, come on.
Yeah.
I would watch a movie of her just going through her day, of like Viola Davis's day for 2 hours. Like, all right, Viola, hanging out with you because I love her. And then I said Vincent D'Onofrio, and then finally John Barenthal. Is that how you say that? Fucking Punisher.
The last two, I mean, might as well touch on the last couple. Is Sucker Punch by Zack Snyder. I mean, that's a given. I think there's a director's cut out there, which I would recommend, because the ending is more clear otherwise, with the extra bit of dialogue and the extra scenes. Wild Things, I only included this because teenage me liked the movie. It's got Naomi Campbell and Denise Richards kissing. Me as a teenager, I'm like, oh man, you didn't have the fucking computer in your pocket and you can just look up scenes whenever. It's like, fuck, this is on TV. So that's a teenage Daniel recommendation right there.
And it's funny because I can't remember the movie. I was like, what? And then you said that scene. I was like, there he is. Yep, there it is. Don't remember much about that movie other than the fucking pool scene. So, yep.
And that's the
not
fucking
only
cover.
Teenage Daniel, but yes, Teenage Nick would have been sitting right there going, yeah, with you.
But that
Sucker Punch, Sucker Punch is awesome. I'm not sure 100% that I've seen director's cut. I'll have to go back and see what I have. But even without that little bit, I'm excited to see that. But I still fucking like that movie. It's weird and trippy, but I dig it.
Yeah, it's kind of like a video game a little bit. You know, she's going through the different levels and bosses and worlds, but it's really an escape to her from what she's going through, which is kind of neat. And Oscar Isaac, I think, is in there, like a very young Oscar Isaac.
Yeah, you're right. I like that movie. And again, I'm always biased for my boy, but as weird as it is, I think that it makes up because if you're not familiar, anybody like what we're talking about, of it's something is happening in the real world, but in what we see in the mind of the people doing it, it's weird and actiony and different. And then they travel between the two worlds. What is the real world and what they're imagining to like get themselves through? I don't know. The idea to me was super duper different, and when I first saw it, I loved it, and I still think it holds up.
Yeah, and the soundtrack is amazing too.
Yep.
But there you have it, a bunch of recommendations. If you want to see the full list, it'll be online on their What's New on Netflix. I think Variety might have done a full article on it, but they do them every month. So you can find the full list December 2021. But this is just some of the stuff that we remember or that we recommend from this list. And obviously there's going to be a ton of Christmas movies. Jared, who's another host on here, I'm sure he's going to like a lot of those Netflix original movies. That's as close as you get to Hallmark movies on Netflix. So there you have it. But let's head into the Brokehead block, which is the final portion of today's episode. What we've been doing this week, playing, reading, whatever it may be. So obviously with Thanksgiving that just showed up, how was your Thanksgiving, Nick?
It was really good. It's kind of gone this way for the last 2 years, and as far as I could see, it'll go this way for the rest of quite some time, of waking up early to get to my family's house to watch the parade with my folks, my sister, her husband, the 3 nephews. The parade to me growing up always meant a lot. Like, we'd always wake up to watch that and make sure that we saw everything before the days of trying to tape it, or, you had to watch that shit live and run to the bathroom for the commercials, which really, sorry, sidetracked me. The commercials in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade this year were like really fucking good, almost Super Bowl worthy of production and stories going in and out and people buying a lot of time. And, they're all heart touching, kind of coming up on Christmas stories, if you will. The one that stood out was like one for Dick's, the sporting good. It was more than just a ping pong table. It meant everything to this family, and you're not just giving a gift, blah, blah. Anyway, so we do that in the morning, and I love that shit. My mom makes delicious breakfast, and then we go to her dad's house where most of her family comes around for dinner. And it's what, like I said, we've done that for a few years now. I think we'll do that for a while. Good food, good family. It was great. How was yours, sir?
It was good. We were both not working, which is great. And previous many years ago, we'd be like, all right, well, when are we celebrating Thanksgiving? And then our parents would, all right, how about Tuesday, or how about this day? But this day, we were able to celebrate it in the morning at her parents', and then in the afternoon or night with my parents'. So overate a little bit. Like I held back, but I was still like, oh man. And my parents are like, here, have a plate of this. And I'm like, all right. And I had, I ate the other plate too. And I didn't feel too great, but it wasn't as bad as like previous years. Kelly and I are vegetarians, so it was a lot of, it wasn't terrible. It's salads and some casseroles and whatnot. Not the worst things to overeat on, but it was still like, I felt it the next day for. But it was fun. It was great that we got to do that all in one day, that we were able to do it on the day itself, that we didn't have to work, that we're healthy, that we weren't too sick for it, that everyone from last year is still around and celebrating with us. So that's something to be thankful for. And it's just an excuse for people to get together, for family to get together. And I thought that was great. It was way different than, I think, last year's, where, they were discouraging, or the year before that, they were discouraging Thanksgiving gatherings. And, this year it seemed like, all right, everyone was kind of more, yeah, no, we're going to see our family, and that's what's going to happen. And that kind of mentality, I think, continued this year and felt like a more normal Thanksgiving. Probably, I'm going to say it felt like a normal Thanksgiving.
I would have to agree 100%, kind of just a round robin back to what we were talking about Comic-Con too. Like, there was never even a discussion like, should we or shouldn't we? Was it, there was 100% full steam ahead for fucking Thanksgiving this year. So I think that as we're kind of doing it, like, that's just how we're approaching things of all magnitudes going forward. Just like, no, we're going forward. We're doing it. So I was happy to have Thanksgiving this year, a proper one. Like you said, a normal one. But also too, like normal just means like as long as we get through this and nobody's bleeding, we should be
Mhm.
good.
Did you end up doing any Black Friday shopping or Cyber Monday deals that you kind of caught your eye?
No, nothing at all. In the past, I've gotten some of my Power Rangers stuff in the past, and I was looking for Entertainment Earth to do that again. But nothing is ever as good as that one sale. It was like 3 or 4 years ago where I got a Green Ranger helmet and a Zeomorpher for like dead cheap during some sort of Black Friday deal, and looked for it again. Nothing. But to be honest, too, I was working and I didn't expect our deals to be as great as they were, and they were really good, and we were just fucking slammed, dude. So I didn't have a lot of time to get on there and look around as much as I would have wanted. Did you? Any flat screens? Any giant somethings?
No, I think what's neat about the way they do sales, and Bobby's on top of it, he'll put them up on Discord like, hey, Best Buy's doing their Black Friday deals now, like a month ahead of time, shit like that. A lot of companies are just like, fuck it, let's do them now. Let's just sell shit now for the next 2 months, and they'll blow stuff out. So I've seen a lot of that, and if I had some more disposable income, like I took a pay cut by quitting the comic shop and working where I work now. So I'm really careful with my money, especially. So I didn't really seek out anything. I didn't look to upgrade any TV or I actually did, now that we were talking about it, I did get one video game and it's the Angry Video Game Nerd Part 1 and 2. They were doing a digital sale on PlayStation Plus. I think it was $10 for both games. It might have even been 5. So I was like, great, I don't have enough for the physical release because I think that one's $30 to $50, but I'll get the digital one. That one's pretty cheap and I'll play them both and at some point. So technology the way it is, I was impressed by it. I went on my phone and logged into my PlayStation account on my phone, and then it's like, would you like to download it now? And I'm like, onto my console, and I'm like, yes. So from my phone I was able to tell my PlayStation to download the fucking game so it's ready for me whenever I want, which impressed old ass me. Like I know regular gamers are like, yeah dude, that's a normal thing, but to me I was like, holy shit, that's really cool. So that's the one deal I took advantage of.
Yeah, dude, I guess, I mean, if you're old ass, then we're old ass together, because sometimes technology blows my mind away. I was working and I said, I'm going to go on a Dunkin' run. And I already consider my Dunkin' app high standard of like, isn't this awesome? I get to make all these different things and they give me points, blah, blah, blah. So one of the guys was like, listen, I don't got hash. Can I Venmo you? And I said, yes, I am at least familiar enough with Venmo. But he says, all right, I got to find you. And I start reading my email and he goes, no, just give me the thing. What the fuck are you talking about? He's like, the thing, the dark box, the QR code. Well, he was saying QR code and I didn't know what that meant. So anyway, he's like, show me that. And I eventually did. And he makes his a phone and it finds it like that. I was like, God, technology is good. And all of a sudden the money was there and shit. Like everything is just automatic anymore. And I don't mind it. Some people are like, aren't you scared that they're spying on you? And I was like, if anything, I'm just sorry for anybody who spies on me. Like, I'm boring as fuck, dude. Like, there's no way they're getting anything good from knowing how much Dunkin' I order. You know what I mean? Like, the person assigned to spy on me has a worse fucking job than almost anybody I know, because nothing good will ever come of it. But I like all the automation and all that shit.
It's like literally, there's nothing to see here. No, literally, there's nothing to see here. You're wasting your time.
Yeah.
I did get the chance to watch, I think it was the week of Thanksgiving, House of Gucci, which is the latest Ridley Scott film. So he's got 2 in theaters right now, The Last Duel and House of Gucci, which this one I believe is doing a lot better. It's got more star power behind it, and it's got the name Gucci. I saw a lot of teenagers in the theater, so I was like, oh, all right. So I guess the name did really bring in people, and maybe it was Lady Gaga, but I thought teenagers that's like too old for them. I remember Lady Gaga being popular 8 years ago or so. So I do think it was because of the name, but that I recommend. It was awesome. I think we're going to see another Oscar nomination from Lady Gaga for her performance. It was really fucking good. And probably Ridley Scott as far as directing. I know Jared Leto's performance has been divisive with people. I thought he did a great job too, but for some people it was too odd a character for him, but you kind of got to see who he plays because they're all based on real people anyway. And he got lost in the performance just like he does in everything else. You see him in the fat suit, or maybe he gained weight because he is a method actor, but you really didn't recognize him in that. It had everything. It was a little bit funny. It was a drama. It was kind of hard to watch sometimes, but you see the story of Gucci and the brand and how there was a lot of nefarious stuff involved with their family and with success and how much sacrifice you really need to make to take over a company, basically. So it was awesome. I'm glad I got to go see it.
That sounds great. Maybe I'll look into that too, because all the actors' names that you kind of rolled off there sounded good. I like a movie like that in terms of I don't know anything about Gucci, nor have I thought about it or cared about it. But if it's a movie made well enough, all of a sudden I'm just like, this is fucking fascinating, you know? So I trust you and your brand of movies too, from everything I've heard over the years. So I will definitely check that out. Last time I was in theaters is for the Ghostbusters. And the next time is I'm not 1,000% sure yet.
How was
Maybe it'll be
Ghostbusters?
this one. It was fine. Like I love that shit, so I was going to be a harsh critique, and it was fine. It was good. It was C plus B minus work kind of. There was a lot of stuff that I went, oh, look at that. But it just for me as well as just somebody who likes movies and who likes pacing. There was just times where I was like, get to the fucking point, guys. Like, let's go. And then even when we got to cool things, I was like, yay, this is cool. Fuck, we're still here. Like, yes, this should have been a cool moment. And now it's a cool minute. And now it's a cool 5 minutes. And now we're still, you know what I mean? Like there were parts where I was just like, you could have done different. But they didn't ask me to do it. So for what I got from more Ghostbusters, definitely better than 2016. Is it better than number 2 at points? At points for sure. So maybe it's even better than number 2. But definitely nowhere near the original OG ever.
There was so much hype behind this one. It seemed like Ghostbusters fans were like, this is the one. This is going to be the one that we should have gotten a couple years back. Now that they're bringing in, I guess, more of that original cast or some of that nostalgia. I remember in the trailer they show that old commercial. And yeah, you're like the third person to tell me like, yeah, it was fine. It was okay. It was all right. So do you think that they didn't play enough into Ghostbusters 1? Or, I mean, aside from the pacing itself, do you think from a fan's perspective that they put enough of that old stuff in there for you to be satisfied of like, yeah, this is the same world. It's not a reboot like that other one. Or maybe did they modernize the ghosts too much? Because I saw some of that with the little marshmallow.
Yeah, that like, do you mind full spoilers? / can we talk about it?
Yeah, let's talk about it. Spoiler warning to anyone that hasn't seen it.
The Marshmallow Men were there just for nostalgia, didn't really do anything past that scene that you see, and they give a reason for a Ghostbuster of sort, you know, to come out of a situation all covered in marshmallow, a la the first one. It definitely gave us a lot of stuff. So no, to answer your question, it gave me all that nostalgia that I wanted. But just in between those beats, sometimes I feel like it lost itself of what it should be doing.
So yeah,
so I would like to see, yeah, like more than just that. Like, what are we doing? What would have been happening if it wasn't these guys and it just happened to be some other eccentric scientist rather than Egon Spangler who left all this stuff behind? You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
Where it almost relied on that a little too much for my taste of just, okay, this is like I'm sorry that I'm kind of coming up short on words of how I felt about that wise of just it was fine. It's the only thing I'm sorry just to be so repetitive, but it was fine. And
would you want to see a part 2 in this world, or would you be okay with no more Ghostbusters after this?
Oh, balls. Never. Like, once again, kind of even back to the Spider-Man talk, a world of no more Ghostbusters seems sad and lonely for Nick. So no, I would never want to live in a world where they never made Ghostbusters films, even if all they kept making was the 2016 ones. Because as a silver linings or rose-colored glasses kind of guy, there's stuff that I could find that I like. Because no, a world with no more Ghostbusters doesn't sound good. Would I want to see these guys again? I'm kind of over Finn Wolfhard. I was really happy he's not the main focal part. His sister in the story is. She did fine. I guess the thing that bothered me is, like, while also pushing hard into the first one, they also did things to ignore it. Like, these kids didn't know who the Ghostbusters were. And it's like, dude, they took the Statue of Liberty and walked it down. Like, there was a giant marshmallow. They did stuff that the world had never seen and will never see again. Do you honestly think that in your lifetime, if the Statue of Liberty walked itself out of its place through New York, that we'd ever stop talking about it?
Yeah, that's true.
Like, really, honestly, answer that. Do you think we'd ever stop bringing that shit up, or your son or your son's son wouldn't know about the time the Statue of Liberty fucking walked?
That'd be in fucking history books. It'd be forever be a meme. They'd always reference it. There'd be all kinds of documentaries on it.
It would forever be a meme. Exactly. Boom. That's the best point, dude. That generation could never forget it because they'd fucking meme it. You're right. It'd be a TikTok or it'd be a fucking something. Good point. So yeah, there is a point where they like Paul Rudd's like, you guys don't know who the Ghostbusters are? And it's like, boo. How do you mean? Like, how did the world forget about the Ghostbusters?
Your excitement for it kind of like, yeah, I'm not a huge Ghostbusters guy. I saw the 2016 one though, so I might as well watch this new one and kind of only go up from here. But
yeah, you sat for that one, sit for this one.
There you go. Yeah, I don't want that to be my last Ghostbusters experience, especially now hearing that most people are like, yeah, it was okay, it was fine, it was better than the last one, so can only go up. But Nick, I want to thank you once again for being the co-host this week and for talking Ghostbusters and Zack Snyder, Spider-Man stuff. I really do appreciate it, and I do want you to let them know where they can find your podcast, Buds, Bros, and Superheroes, and where they can contact you.
So yeah, we're trying to be all over the internet as much as we can. So Facebook, Instagram is kind of the norm. Instagram, I think we're a little bit more on top of the ball there. In terms of listening, YouTube, and then Podbean, Spotify. What's the other one that's pretty good with the famous people that the kids like nowadays? Podbean, Spotify. Oh, Apple. That's the one that I was thinking of. I've been having a little bit of a rough few weeks getting some hosts to line up every now and then sickness. And I'm not going to lie, a lot of it is on me as well. I've got a new job since September and then got promoted in that job. So it's kind of like having two new jobs all of a sudden. Mm-hmm. And I'm not balancing that quite as well. So I'm not going to put it all on there. But I do have like 3 or 4 weeks lined up. So new episodes are 100% coming. Hopefully going to line one up with you as well and get you on that side, my side as well. But thank you for letting me be on your side right now. And of course, getting me to vamp all that time about my stuff. I really, really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, as do I, man. And to the Brocat on the other side, if you enjoy this podcast, you'll enjoy Buds, Bros, and Superheroes because he discusses, along with other hosts, and I've been on a few times, a lot of the same stuff that we love here on the podcast, plus marijuana as well. So I know some Brocat Core members do participate in that. So check out Buds, Bros, and Superheroes as well. There will be a link in the description of today's episode. Otherwise, my call to action this week is Patreon. If you head on over to patreon.com/thereasonsimBroke, you can get the podcast early each week at any of the tiers. So if you join the tier 1, tier 2, you will get the podcast early and all kinds of different perks as well, including access to our exclusive board on Discord, a Patreon VIP lounge, where only the Patreon backers can go on there. So all kinds of goodies on there. And you also get subscribe to the list whenever a new shirt design comes out. It'll give you an update on Patreon. So it's really neat. That's once again, patreon.com/thereasonsimbroke. Thank you again for joining us this week. I've been Daniel, joined by Nick, and Brocat Core. All will be well. So Nick, you're going to go for the next Spider-Man film, right? This month?
Yeah, if not this month, I'll definitely try to maybe see that in theater. Do you like my commitment to that one?
Yeah. For the next trilogy that's coming out, are there any villains in Spider-Man's lore, either from the previous films, because it looks like they're doing a multiverse thing, or ones that they haven't explored that you'd want to see in this next trilogy?
Fuck yeah, dude. Let's get some Madam Web up in this motherfucker. Let's finally get the ending of Spider-Man, the animated series, where he finds his Mary Jane and not some weird convoluted clone. Let's get that storyline in there. Let's get Madam Web. Oh, yeah, I would like to see Madam Web. That kind of whole multiverse thing of doing that would be cool.
You kind of have to. Like, there's some Spider-Man fans that are kind of not happy that it's Doctor Strange instead. They kind of wanted Madam Web. They're like, you have a character already, use her. But,
Holy shit, you're right. Madam Web would have made so much more sense for this.